All right, go for it.
And we're live here on Facebook. I'd like to welcome those of you listening in podcast land. And hello, YouTube. Rich, you want to say hi?
Hey, welcome everybody. You took one of my welcomes. You took my welcome away from me as you've already welcomed everybody that listens on our various platforms.
Yes.
So welcome to this week's show. We got a lot to discuss, but before we give you a rundown of what we're going to be talking about on today's show, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Got a early show shout out to my little brother and sister-in-law. They had twin baby girls this week, so congratulations to them. Looking forward to meeting them someday, hopefully soon. Rich, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. So
birthday celebrations went well?
Yeah.
Good.
Birthday celebrations went well. Wrapped up the birthday week with seeing the new James Bond movie on Sunday.
Ooh.
So Sunday afternoon.
No spoilers, folks. We're not going to give you spoilers.
Not going to do it.
On James Bond. But there's probably going to be some spoilers later on Masked Singer if we get to that, because man, do we have a show for you.
Will.
So
we do.
We'll start out with hockey started this week, so we'll talk a little hockey, give you our Stanley Cup Finals and who we think's going to win. We'll also hit some baseball up and talk about a whole bunch of stuff in baseball. Rich, what else do we got?
You know, Mike, we're also going to give you our uneducated best guess of who the top 8 teams will be in each conference to make the NBA playoffs as a really quick hit, since we're not really NBA guys. And then, as always, we'll talk NASCAR and the NFL. So, Mike, do you know what time it is?
Is it time to roll the intro? Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa, this is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich. And we're back. Okay, folks, as we do every week, it's time to get into the poll question. This week's poll question was pork butt, brisket, or turkey? Rich,
yeah.
How did you vote on that?
You know, out of those 3 coming out of the smoker, I really love brisket. So where did you go, Mike? And then tell us how the folks went.
I'm trying to get to it as it's... Oh, there we go. Oh, man, they've totally changed up our poll questions. I don't know if you've seen them, but looks totally weird now. Wow. I went with brisket as well. There were 10 votes. Turkey got nothing.
Really?
I mean, smoked turkey is awesome for Thanksgiving and tailgate. I guess, do you call Thanksgiving dinner if you eat before the game start tailgating?
No. I was thinking maybe you start the smoking process before going out to the stadium and then take the smoker with you on the back of on a tailgate rig. But so no, I would not say that pre-gaming with your Thanksgiving meal counts as tailgating before going to a game.
Okay. I voted for brisket. 8 other people joined me in that, including you, Rich, and pork got 2 votes. Pork butt's great. I love pork butt, but I do have a brisket in my freezer waiting to be smoked from Hanson Farms. Yummy. Can't wait.
All right. So brisket will move on as we'll kind of rank everything. We'll rank all the foods from each category, from each winning vote once we have anybody. And we're going to kind of go over maybe the cold items this week. We're just going to go with a salad or a sub sandwich.
Okay.
I don't know what. So we'll see what happens. So we'll see what happens. So, Mike, let's hit the ice. So last week we gave you our uneducated guesses on who was going to win each division. This week, who's going to win the entire thing, the Stanley Cup? We'll see how bad these look at the All-Star break as well as at the end of the season. If the teams that we identify even make the playoffs, let alone advance to the Stanley Cup. So, Mike, who's your pick?
I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Golden Knights over the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Lightning.
Yeah.
Okay. My pick, I'm going to go with the New York Islanders over the Dallas Stars.
Friend of the show, and I'll tag him at some point, but friend of the show, Mark Wishnea will appreciate that one. He's an Islander fan.
I thought he was a Ranger fan.
Oh, is he? He might be a Ranger fan.
I think you've said in the past that he's a Rangers fan, not an Islanders fan.
Well, good on him then. Then he can hate you for that.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So
we leave the hardness of the ice to go to the hardness of the hardwood to talk about the NBA. Rich, let's talk. We're gonna just go boom, boom, boom. Give you our quick.
That's right.
We'll give you our quick, in no particular order, top 8 in each conference. In the Eastern, we'll start in the East, head to the West. We won't even give you who we think gets the automatic bids. Because
in the NBA, it doesn't matter. They base your playoff seeding off of your record. The only thing that a division win gets you is an automatic bid into the playoffs.
Right. So
regardless of what your record is, if you win your division in the NBA, you get into the playoffs. So, Mike, we're just going to give you in no particular order the top 8 teams that will make the playoffs for the NBA.
I'm going to start with the 76ers.
76ers, okay. I have the 76ers as well.
Okay.
Making the playoffs in the East.
Who's another team you have, Rich?
Another team that I've ranked a little, the Boston Celtics.
I, too, have the Boston Celtics. Okay. And I'm going to give you the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, but the defending champion Bucks, I don't see how they can miss the playoffs, so I have the Bucks as well.
Okay. Rich, what's another team you got?
I went with the Toronto Raptors.
Hey, guess what? Everybody thinks the Raptors should make it, I think, because I do too.
Okay. All right. Eventually, we've got to come to a team that we differ on. So, what's your next team you think is going to make the playoffs?
I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Well, I'm not seeing the Cavaliers, but I also don't follow basketball. So I'm going to go with a team that made the playoffs last year and went pretty far. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay. I have the team that has been in everybody's mind this week because of one of their players, the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I think with or without Kyrie Irving, I think the Nets will make the playoffs.
Okay.
So I like that.
And
the final team, I think.
I thought, have we done the team that I'm highlighting?
No, we haven't. Okay.
It's your team.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay.
Miami Heat, I think, are going to make the playoffs.
I agree. And then the final team, it's local, at least for one of us.
Yeah, the Chicago Bulls. They've made a lot of good off-season moves.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for your Chicago Bulls. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just remembering
Michael
the
Jordan's
90s.
excited for this.
Yeah.
Even Michael Jordan's excited for the Bulls this year.
Yeah.
This year. So, Mike, the Western Conference.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to start out. I'm going to start out with 2 teams.
Okay, go for it.
I'm saying L.A. Both L.A. teams are going to make it.
Okay, I can agree with you on the Lakers, but not the Clippers, because Kyrie Irving's going to be recovering from knee surgery. So they very well could make the playoffs, but I'm going to go no. I'm going to go no. So the second team that I'm going to give you that I notice is not on your list is the Blazers.
Okay, I like it. The Utah Jazz, I think, will do a good job this year.
I agree with the Jazz. So another The next team that I have on my list for the Western Conference is the Phoenix Suns.
I agree with that one 100%. The team that I have next is going to be a gunshot wound. Wait, no, Golden State Warriors. Sorry, GSW.
Yeah. I have the Warriors too. I think they're finally back healthy, so
Yep.
I think they can do it too. I have the Warriors as well. The next team that I have on my list, the Dallas Mavericks.
Ooh, yeah, I have them as well. Yeah, let's see how they do. The next team on my list, the Denver Nuggets.
Yep, I have the Denver Nuggets as well.
Okay, and then your final team, Rich?
The final team I have is the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, well, this is where I put Oklahoma City.
Okay, Oklahoma City, I think, is still. They're a young team that that could get overlooked and pull some upsets. So, man, I could see it, but I like the playoff experience of the teams that I picked a little bit better.
I think you're probably right. I don't follow it well enough to know that if I did a terrible job or if I did a good job.
Much like the NFL, much like the hockey, we'll see how these picks look around the All-Star break, and as well once the season ends, on how many of the 16 we got right.
Okay.
Mike, let's go ahead and head over to the Diamond where we can actually talk about sports we actually know something about.
Okay. So just to give you a quick recap, the Boston Red Sox lead the Tampa Bay Rays.
They won.
They won.
That is a
they
win.
won. Yeah, that's a win. 3-1, and the Astros beat the Sox 3-2, making the White Sox. Making your ALCS the Boston Red Sox versus the Houston Astros. Rich, who's going to win this series?
Well, Mike, it's almost like a lesser of two evils, because both teams have been accused of cheating. The Astros got more publicity than the Red Sox about it. So I'm going to go with the Astros.
Yep.
There's a lot of former Quad City River Bandits on that team.
Yep.
And our old pal, distant pal, but old Cubs manager Dusty Baker is managing that squad now. So I'd like to see Dusty Baker maybe get a chance to get to the World Series. Finally get that World Series ring.
You know, I love that Dusty is there. I want Dusty to do well. I cannot support that team. I actually do want it. I do want the matchup that you picked, but I'm going to pick the Red Sox just to be slightly contrarian. And, using Apple Watches is better than banging on a trash can.
Okay.
A little harder to catch.
Along with that, did you hear what former Cub and White Sox reliever Ryan Chapera had to say about the Astros when they were playing during the Astros White Sox series before Game 4?
No.
He said he's finding it kind of interesting how there's more strikeouts when the Astros are on the road as opposed to home.
So he thinks they're still stealing signs.
He thinks that there's still some shady stuff going on when the games are in Houston.
Oh, okay.
But in turn, the White Sox went and got blown out in Game 4 and are no longer playing. So maybe there's some truth that there's still some shady stuff going on, or there's not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a case of they hit better at home than on the road, and that's the other reason why I went with the Astros. They have home field advantage.
I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna forgive the Astros. I mean, I've said it before, and I seem to be sticking pretty ardent to it. I'm never gonna forgive the Astros on this. I'm not. But there is something to be said that hitting at home you do better. I mean, most teams do hit better. The amount better might be slightly different, and that might be the issue, but who knows. Now, leaving the American League, heading over to the National League, Rich, the Braves defeated the Brewers 3-2, which is the exact same way that the Dodgers defeated the Giants. So we have Dodgers-Braves heading into the National League Championship Series. Rich, I think we both are in agreement on this one. I mean,
The Dodgers.
Yeah, the Dodgers have been between the Dodgers and the Giants. They've both been the best at individual times. They've both been the best team in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I agree. I mean,
this year,
if the Braves had, if the Braves had Ronald Acuna Jr. in that lineup, I might be swayed to give it to the Braves. But Ronald Acuna is injured, and he's not there. He could be in the dugout for him on to provide emotional or kind of like to be the team spirit guy, but he's not going to be out there impacting the game. So I got to go with the more talented Dodger squad in this one.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I know that it breaks the heart of friend of the show,
Rich Lively.
Rich Lively, yeah, you knew who I was talking about. Rich Lively he's a huge Braves fan. I wouldn't mind seeing him get to have a happy year, but I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, so Mike, looking back at how we did our preseason NLCS and ALCS, none of your teams got in as the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Yankees, and the White Sox all lost.
Yeah.
And the only team that I put into the NLCS that was correct is the Dodgers.
Yeah.
However, looking back at our preseason pick, I got it right, I predicted the Dodgers over the Braves before the season even started, but I changed my mind when we were making our postseason picks.
Yeah. So we will see how that goes. And we'll keep you updated. We have decided that Rich got more teams, has gotten things more accurate in the playoffs, so he gets to pick who for the lunch bet that you all know that we make. Rich will get to pick his team for the World Series, and I may have to just boo the team that I get stuck with, or not. Who knows?
All right.
So we also had some managers get fired this week. Rich, you want to give us who got fired, and then we'll discuss. I have some ideas about some of these, but
Okay. So before the postseason started, the Padres and the Mets fired their managers, Joyce Tingler out in San Diego, Luis Rojas out in Queens. But maybe the surprise to me was the Cardinals let go of their manager, Mike Schilt.
So
after he led them to a surprise turnaround and playoff push, but they lost in the wild card game.
Again, how often do we see it that teams that lose in the wild card actually fire their manager? It's not an unusual thing. Teams that make it to the wild card game tend to believe that they should expect a better outcome. They kind of expect themselves to be a great team. And when you lose in that game, that's where a lot of guys get fired. So I am not surprised at all at the way that went down.
I kind of am, because I don't know why. But I kind of expect better things out of the Cardinals as an organization. I thought that they would have been a little bit more maybe patient or loyal to their managers. How many years did Tony La Russa stick with the team? He had a good run he had a consistent value of either making the playoffs or they were right on the cusp of making the playoffs every year. But Tony La Russa stayed there for a long time, and so did Mike Matheny.
Yep.
Before they had to let him go. So to think that a lifelong member of the organization, a coach that paid his dues and came up coaching in the minor leagues, and a guy that turned around their season 3 years ago when they fired Matheny, and Schilt was the guy that turned that team around, and they never had a losing record with him as their manager. They only missed the playoffs once, I think.
Rich, I have some questions for you that go along. Okay, so how many times did the Cubs manager Joe Maddon have a losing record?
He did not have a losing record.
Oh, okay. How many times did he miss the playoffs?
I think it was once.
Oh, so it's not unusual for teams that have a decent core to fire somebody under those similar circumstances. I guess Joe Madden wasn't technically fired; he just wasn't re-signed.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, I mean, the stories that I read about Mike Schild is it seemed like he made that team. I guess he exceeded expectations with the rosters that were given to him, and
Oh yeah,
an organization like the Cardinals to say that to fire him or let him know that we were going to let you go, with it being done over a telephone call instead of it being a face-to-face meeting, just wasn't expecting that. So
No,
we'll have to see who gets those jobs. I'm not surprised by the other two, as there was a lot of expectations for the Padres and Mets, and they seemed that they got worse after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
After the trade deadline. So I wasn't surprised that those two guys were let go.
Yeah, the Mets had huge expectations, and they were playing up to them for much of the year. But to end it the way they did, I'm not surprised. The Padres, they tended to be a decent darling at the beginning of the year for a lot of people. But, you know, things happen, and I mean, both of us put the Padres making the playoffs, even if it was in the one game playoff.
Yeah, a lot of people even thought that they could win the West instead of the Dodgers.
Yep. And so am I surprised that, I mean, again, we both thought that they were going to do well. Now, they came up against two of the greatest teams that we've seen maybe in our lifetime. Maybe not greatest teams, but greatest
divisional race
in
a long time
that we've seen in a long time. Two teams winning 109 games
in the same division.
Yeah, it's hard to go against that. So am I surprised? No. Do I think that those guys deserved more? Probably. But you know, when the Padres are ever, like, they were everyone's darling going into the season. They were one of the biggest darlings in the league, and they fooled a lot of people. I would say they fooled people, not just. Mm-hmm. So when you do something like that, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, Rojas doesn't surprise me. He was kind of like the Mets' backup guy. Yeah. After they had to let go of Beltran due to the Astros allegations. So that Rojas doesn't surprise me. I don't think he was the front office's choice. He obviously wasn't the ownership's choice.
Nope.
So that doesn't surprise me either. So the Cubs have a new general manager, as they finally hired a general manager to so Jeb Hoyer can focus more on president of baseball operations and have somebody to run more of the day-to-day general manager duties instead of having to do both jobs. Yeah,
and hopefully that'll be good. Baseball is so, like, football, you have a general manager and a head coach. Your GM in football is the financial chief executive, right? So he's like the CFO, and then the head coach is the operational director. He's the CEO, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
In baseball, it's really weird. So you have the operations guy, which is your manager. You have your guy in charge of, you know, all of baseball combined, which is your president of baseball operations, and then you have then you have the GM, which is kind of the go-between between those two, kind of, I guess, is the best.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the baseball structure works either, because I mean, you have Shane. I think it's like Shane Kenny handles more of the business side of the Cubs, while Epstein and Theo Epstein, when he was with the club, and Jeb Hoyer more handled the baseball side.
Yeah.
So I mean, I am glad to see that the Cubs went outside of the organization.
Yes. Yeah.
to hire a general manager, as Carter Hawkins will be the new general manager. He comes over from Cleveland, 37 years old. He's a young guy too.
Man. I mean, at least I can say I'm younger than him. I got you.
Yeah, I can't. So yeah, he worked his way up through the Cleveland organization, and
Officially,
previously he was the assistant general manager in Cleveland.
Just for all those wondering, that means that in 7 months I have to be a GM for a baseball team. Apparently, that's kind of what that means.
Or you're past your prime.
Or I'm past my prime. I'm no longer, man.
For that.
Yeah.
For that job.
No, I'm excited for this. Hopefully, it will. And again, Tom Ricketts put out his statement. Did you get to read the Ricketts statement yesterday that was released?
Did see that.
He basically said, "We have resources. We're going to use them. We are going to be competitive this year."
So we didn't have those resources at the beginning of this year when we had a core group of players we could have built around?
I think he realized even if we did try to keep this core group, that core group, I'm going to say that core group, they're no longer part of the team. Mm-hmm. Even if we tried to do that, we did not position ourselves in a way to do it well this year. And so am I surprised? No. And then beyond that, he realized that this core I would almost say they were too comfortable. They were continuing to rest on their laurels of, hey guys, we got Chicago a World Series. Aren't we the greatest ever? And they weren't. And we saw it. Oh man, I'm gonna badmouth my favorite player in baseball. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? Javi Baez.
All right.
He was the pinnacle of kind of resting on his laurels. He was the pinnacle of, meh, I'll get there. He legitimately did not show up for the team. How many times did we see him not hustle to first base before Grandpa Ross said, if you're not hustling to first base, go sit down. If you're not paying attention, go sit down. I don't need you here. You can wait. Because you got to pay attention to the game. You need to play like it matters to you. And he continued to do it even after that. I'm not happy about saying this. I think Javi Baez is the greatest baseball player if nothing more, in that position that we've seen in our lifetime. He is changing the game in that shortstop position. But the fact of the matter is, he was no longer doing that as a Cub. Yeah, he'd get you the Gold Glove stats and make it look pretty and have that flair, but he didn't hustle for his team. He didn't show that he cared, and that's the problem. That's why we had to get rid of those guys.
Okay.
I've turned the corner on this one.
Okay. For me to say that we have the resources and we plan to spend them this year, I think we had the resources all along, and he chose to do something else. The Yu Darvish deal proves that.
You know what?
Darvish deal proves that.
We did have the resources all along, but sometimes you got to take a year and say, this core group, you got to prove it to me. And I think that's what this year was for Hoyer and for Ricketts. They were like, prove it. We'll spend if you guys get us into the playoffs. I think if they would have gotten them if they would have been contenders at the trade deadline, they wouldn't have traded these guys away. First, second, if they would have got us into the playoffs, I think we would have signed at least 2, if not all 3 of our big names that we were trying to. And if we would have done that, we would have been spending the money and everybody would have been like, oh, look how awesome we are. But I would even say Rizzo and Bryant, as much as they tried, there were still times that you could see that they didn't give it their all like we've seen in the past.
Okay. and that's a fair assessment. So hopefully Ricketts' comments actually mean something, and it's not going to be we're going to spend money, but it's not going to be on the players you think we're going to spend money on.
Yeah.
And it's actual impact bats that can move the needle and improve the club overall, and not improve them marginally to where they're signed on 1 or 2 year deals. And if things aren't going as well at the trade deadline again, those are the guys that are put up on the auction block and give us the best offer you can give us for those guys.
Yep.
As they're not going to do us any good as we're not winning this year.
Yeah.
So Mike, let's keep making those left turns, and let's start those engines. And what do we got coming up left if we start those engines, Mike?
We got the NASCAR Corner presented by Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated, Moline, Illinois. Check them out for all your sports memorabilia needs. Moline, Illinois, or online at their eBay store. Once again, that's Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated. Let's go to the NASCAR Corner. Fantasy shoutouts this week. Big surprise as Tony the Funk House wins the week in the Charlotte Roval, followed by Solomon, followed by you, followed by me. That means our overall standings, Rich, you are doing quite well, as you still have that comfortable 300-point lead over Solomon. I am about 500. I am 500 points behind Tony, and Solomon and Tony are slugging it out for second, with about 100 points between them. In the playoffs, however, Solomon is 50 points above me. I am about 30 points above you, and Tony is about 30 points behind you. We are close in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's going to come down to the wire. We have eliminated some guys. Last week's race was great, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it. As we were out celebrating my wife's birthday out at the movie theater.
Yeah,
watching the new Bond movie. So as far as the playoffs go, your preseason and postseason pick, Kevin Harvick, he was eliminated.
Yeah.
So he's done. My pick of Martin Truex Jr. is third in the standings going into Texas. Also eliminated along with Kevin Harvick were William Byron, Alex Bowman, and Christopher Bell.
Man, that was a rough cut for the Hendricks team, as 2 of their 3 or 4 drivers that were in the playoffs. So half of their teams were eliminated. Also, Kevin Harvick getting eliminated kind of sucks too. So in the race, Chase Elliott, or at the race at the Roval, you don't have the winner there, Rich.
Your race winner was Kyle Larson.
Yeah, okay.
Kyle Larson won the Roval. My pick of Chase Elliott came in 12th. Your playoff driver pick of Kevin Harvick came in 33rd.
Which he did that to himself, by the way. Drove too hard into a corner, locked up the brakes, crashed. Can't do that.
All right. So we had some really terrible picks, Mike, on the non-playoff side, Mike, as Ryan Newman finished last, and my pick of A.J. Allmendinger finished second to last. I think that's the first time that has ever happened.
Yeah.
That we've ever picked the drivers that finish last and second to last.
Yep.
In all the years we've been doing this show.
Yeah. So in the playoffs, Rich, that leads you to a 1 race lead, 7-6. We are we tied? No, you have a 1 race lead in the overall standings because we were tied.
Yeah, I would have 1 race lead. I miscalculated that. 23-22 for the season overall. So because my drivers finished higher, slightly higher on the non-playoff side, but it still counts.
Yep.
I'll be picking first for the Auto Trader Ecto Park 400 out at Texas Motor Speedway. And for my playoff driver, I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney.
Ooh,
seems to have a good track record down in Texas. And for the non-playoff, I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick.
Ooh, I like both those picks. However, because you picked those 2, I'm going to go with Martin Truex Jr. as my playoff driver.
All right.
And then Alex Bowman as my non-playoff driver, as he was eliminated last week. So,
All right, I like those picks. But Truex is usually pretty good down in Texas. I think he has a better chance of winning at the next two tracks than he does at Texas.
yep.
But it's still a good pick nonetheless. And Bowman has a pretty good track record down there as well. So we'll see how those picks pan out. You can catch that race over on NBC on Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
So, Mike,
and
let's
that
go ahead and
has
hit the gridiron.
that has been
Go ahead.
the NASCAR Corner presented by AAA Sports Cards Incorporated, Moline, Illinois. Check them out for all your sports memorabilia needs. AAA Sports Cards Incorporated. Okay. So this week, heading into the gridiron, our shout-outs for our pick'em. Rich, I won this week. You still have the lead overall, and Midget Nation is our only other person playing anymore.
Hey, we'll take what we can get.
Yep.
We'll take what we can get. So thanks for playing Budget Nation. Keep up the good work.
JR, thank you
Keep
for
making
joining
those
us.
guesses.
Yeah, you're doing great. I mean, you really are doing quite well. You just, Rich and I are doing, I mean, in excess of 10 wins every week for you. 10 wins or more every week for you. And I've only had 2 weeks that aren't above 10 wins. So, yeah, we're doing pretty well, I would say.
All right. Yeah. All right, so week 5, our picks. The Bears beat the Raiders 20-9. You picked the Raiders, I did the Bears, so that brings the Bears record to 3-2, which is the same record that you have in picking their wins and losses.
Yep.
While I improved to 4-1. Were you surprised by that game at all?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit, but you know, they came out, they did what they needed to do. Their game plan was, we're going to run the ball. We're not going to make Fields be the end-all, be-all. We'll let him have some time to play around, but we're not going to make him be the end-all, be-all. And because of that, you know, what happened. So I'm okay with it.
All right, Mike, what happened to our locks of the week?
So in our locks, the Buccaneers did prevail over the Dolphins, 45-17. Rich, your Patriots beat the Texans, 25-22. That brings me to a total to a record of 4-1. Rich, you are at 5-0. Our upset specials of the week: the Broncos lost to the Steelers, 19-27. And the Bengals fell to the Packers in overtime, which changes some things in life when we get down to our power rankings. That puts us both at 2-3 for the year. And Thursday night football, we both picked the Bucks, and I believe that means we're both perfect on the year so far on those games, right? Or no, I have one.
Yeah, it was a close game, though. I think it was a very close game. A lot closer than I thought it would be. What was it, 25-22, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, some garbage time in there, so, you know, that happens. Week 6,
All right.
Bears and the Packers. The Packers come into Soldier Field. Does that make you... how's that make you feel? Are they going to win, lose, or draw?
Well, if they keep the same game script that they had against the Raiders, and the Packers can slow down that run and or run up the score, forcing Justin Fields and the Bears offense to kind of adjust and pass, which is what's going to happen, that's not a good game plan. That's not a good game script for the Bears when they don't want to be passing the ball. So I got to give it to the Packers.
I actually agree that I think it's going to be the Packers, but I think for a completely different reason. I think it's because the running backs, one is out due to injury and one is out due to COVID. That means they're on their third string running back. You can't on a third string running back on a team that needs runners to be something, to do something in order to help you win that game. You're just not going to be able to put anything together. The Packers are going to win. I hate saying it, but you know, my dad will be happy. Lock of the week, Rich. It is your week to pick. Who do you have as a lock?
I'm going to go with an easy one, the Rams over the Giants.
That's a quite easy one. I'm going to go with one that's a little bit more out there, but I still think it's going to... I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid. The Cowboys over the Patriots.
I like that pick as a lock. I mean, the game's in New England, but Dallas has lived up to their expectations so far this year, and the Patriots are still kind of trying to find their way in the post-Brady era.
Yep.
So I don't think that's a bad pick at all. So my upset special, there weren't many clear upsets to pick, besides the ones that were kind of along that 60-40 or like 55-45 split. So I went with the Jaguars over the Dolphins. There really isn't much to do on it.
Yeah.
Except that, I mean,
again,
somebody's got to win it. Somebody's got to win that game, and the Dolphins aren't playing very well right now anyway.
I think the opposite on that's going to happen. I think the Jaguars are going to lose that game, and we're going to see that plus the scandal of the last week and a half with Urban Meyer. We're going to see Urban Meyer looking for a new job starting Monday, or by the time they get on the plane. But okay. My upset of the week, the Minnesota Vikings over the Carolina Panthers. I actually picked them outright to win the game, and I think that the Vikings have a good chance at doing it. The Panthers lost McCaffrey, are still without McCaffrey, and overall not looking good this year. Rich, so Mike, moving to Thursday night
football. Before you step away, go for it. Broncos over the Browns. I see you got to step away real quick.
Yep.
Who do you like, Broncos, Browns?
I like the Browns.
I agree with the Browns as well.
So, Rich.
So there was some.
Yeah, if you want to give us some of your take on what's going on with John Gruden and the Raiders, I'll be right back.
All right. So there was some odd news to come out of the NFL this week, which was John Gruden's not safe for work comments in private emails that were exchanged between him and the then president of football operations, Bruce Allen, who held that position for the Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team. Some of those comments were directed towards the Players Association president, DeMaurice Smith, and when initially the story broke that the comment, it was just one email from 10 years ago, and it was about a Grudenism comment of he has lips the size of Michelin tires. My initial thought was after Gruden explained what he meant by that, and that he still uses that comment of that's to mean that he's a liar. He's a liar who has loose lips. And it was that, this is the entire cancel culture or the media blowing this way out of proportion. And John Gruden shouldn't have to worry about this. He shouldn't be punished for something that was said in a private email conversation. And at the time, he was also not employed by the NFL. So why should he be punished for it? However, fast forward a couple days into the week, the initial comment about DeMaurice Smith came out on Sunday. Gruden addressed it. Fast forward to, what was it, Thursday, Mike?
Yeah.
Welcome back, by the way.
Thanks.
More emails came out that got leaked about other things that were said in those emails between him and Bruce Allen.
It happened Monday. Those came out Monday.
Yeah, that's right. It was Monday.
Because it was in the middle of the Monday night game.
Saturday or Sunday, the one comment that was made about he has lips the size of a Michelin tires.
Yep.
And when the more information got fled, that led me to change my opinion on what should be done with John Gruden.
Really?
With just the one email.
Yeah, but
my comments were along the lines of this is being blown out of proportion. He's explained what he meant by that comment, and it was also something that he said 10 years ago in a private email when he wasn't employed by the NFL.
Yeah, which is why they couldn't punish him. I mean, let's be honest, that's why they couldn't punish him at the time, but they still can't. I mean, the NFL has no real way to punish him. But
however, they gave additional emails.
Yeah.
to Raiders ownership and said, you know what, do with these what you would like. And oh, by the way, some of these have been leaked to the NFL. Some of these have been leaked to the media.
They hadn't leaked them to the media yet. They gave up. So apparently, this is the timeline I understand. Last week, right before the story broke about the initial email, the NFL gave them all of the emails.
Okay.
That said, hey, you got to do something about this. And neither John Gruden nor Mark Davis said we're going to do anything about it. And so the NFL was like, well, I mean, and again, a lot of this is speculation because a lot of how these stories are coming out is very much leaks and backroom stuff. Mm-hmm. But what it feels like is the NFL's like, well, if you're not getting rid of John Gruden, I'm going to get rid of him. So they then leaked the rest of it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean,
then
there were not safe for work comments about Roger Goodell during the labor negotiations and just general opinions of him. There were more comments about the Players Association, negative comments about how the league was allowing players to protest during the national anthem, and homophobic remarks about a player that was drafted into the NFL.
There were
for the wrong reasons.
Emails that were sent to Gruden. Now again, this is to Gruden, so why he gets penalized? Why he's getting in trouble for some of these with the penalty with it? But an email being sent to John Gruden that he replied to with naked pictures of cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Again, all of these things, like by themselves individually, I agree. None of it is really damning enough to fire him as you get stuff growing and growing. But again, I mean, I don't send or receive inappropriate naked pictures to you, Rich. We don't send those type of things to each other. And in general, we don't send anything as crazy as that to each other. I don't send stuff like that. Now, misogynistic and homophobic. If you're gonna yell at a guy for calling, if again, I would say individually, in an NFL locker room, in an NFL conversation, heck, even you and I, one of the things that I have done stand up in the past, and one of the stories I use in my stand up is about the time that I went on a NASCAR trip with Solomon, and on that trip his son was crying a lot, and I used that vulgar term for a female's body part, and said you can't be one of these over and over to him. And then at the track, that word was used, and a 3 or 4 year old kid shouted out that word. That using that word to talk about for me to call you that word, that's a normal colloquial. I wouldn't even call it a colloquialism, but that's a normal thing. So it comes across as misogynistic in today's Me Too world, but it also, I don't think, I agree we probably shouldn't use that, and that's not a correct way to do things.
Or at least you don't call your boss's boss that.
Yeah.
Even if those comments were made 10 years over a course of between 11 and 18, when you weren't an employee of the NFL.
Right. But you don't. We need to change how we use our words. But 10 years ago, that wasn't a big deal. And
would you say it was a big deal back in 2018 when supposedly that was the last of the emails that were given to him?
I still don't. Even in 2018, I don't think it was that terrible of a thing. I would even say today, if you go to a workout room, if you go to a gym, a public gym, Rich, you go to a public gym and you got two guys working out together. In their hour-long workout while they're lifting something, the likelihood that they use that word, saying don't be a, to one another, you're probably if you go for a week straight and the same two guys are working out, there's a pretty decent possibility that word gets used in that type of a tone. I don't think it's intended to be misogynistic. I don't think... Yes, it's vulgar. No, I don't use it in my daily life or hardly ever. Yes, I did in the past. But I've grown. This is the biggest thing I have with this whole issue. I've done things in the past. Folks, I taught a 3-year-old kid that word by accident. Because I was calling him that. But when was the last time I used that term?
Yeah.
I have grown as a person.
I mean,
how do we know John Gruden hasn't grown as a person in the last 10 years? Because let me tell you, folks, if you haven't grown in the last 10 years, you do deserve to be fired from your job. I don't care whether you're a head coach of an NFL team or whether you're an IT guy in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. If you're not growing as a person, if you're not learning new things, yeah, you're right. You are stagnant. You do deserve to get fired. Let's get rid of you. But in today's society, even though it's 10 years in the past, we have to say, nope, John Gruden, you can't make amends for this. That's my problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seemed like his players were behind it.
Yep.
As players were behind it. While rather uncomfortable, you made a reference in our text message about it that Dungy and Tirico looked kind of uncomfortable, kind of defending his press conference about the first about the first email about his statements, but they sounded like they accepted his apology, or at least the network approved response perceived it as they understood where he was coming from, and they understood that it wasn't as big of a deal as a lot of people were making it out to be.
I will say there's a difference in that. My statement was different between Tirico and Dungy.
Okay.
My thoughts on that, and this is where I do have some issues. Mike Tirico felt awkward watching Mike Tirico basically say, I'm the closest person that he's ever been to, blah blah blah, standing there and defending him, making that felt slightly forced. Tony Dungy saying, I don't know about that time. He said he's grown and he's changed, and his players accept it, and his players agree that he's changed and he's not this type of a person now. Tony Dungy is the way I fall into it. Mike Tirico felt a little more forced.
And maybe that's because Mike Tirico, I mean, they spent how many years together in the Monday Night Football?
Oh, yeah.
So he probably had, I'm sure that there were comments that were made off air or as they were leaving or before they went on air, maybe even during commercial breaks, that maybe he knew that, yeah, he probably did say some of those things.
Yeah.
Or he made comments, he made those types of comments off air. So maybe Mike Tirico knew more about this than his public statement, and maybe that's why it looked awkward. But I mean, I agree with you. I think this was totally the NFL kind of forcing Davis's hands to either make a move or to convince Gruden is, you talked your way out of the first one, but here's all of these emails. How are you gonna explain all these emails and not make our team look bad or create a distraction? So you can either resign, or I can fire you or put you on administrative leave, and then you just happen to never come back.
Yeah, it's bad. And the other thing is, I don't think he's gonna, like, again, the way he resigned and the way that things are being held close to the chest, he's gonna make money. He made enough of it. He's getting a good chunk of that $60 million that he had left on his contract, $40 million, whatever it was. He's gonna get to keep a bunch of it. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
It's
you
a set.
Wonder what's in those other.
Yeah.
You wonder what's in those other emails. If there were emails that had to be given to another ownership group about comments that were made of an employee that they employ now but didn't during the time of those emails, what's in those other emails? I mean, the email, the probe was originally into looking into workplace culture or kind of like mispractices, or trying to look into organizational practices of a specific football team. And the only thing that's been done is that Washington was fined a ton of money, and technically Dan Snyder's wife is the CEO of the team and not Dan Snyder anymore.
Yeah. It's
there's bound to be more there.
There's gonna be a lot. I mean, we've already seen emails and controversy about Adam Schefter's handling of a story. Basically reaching out to the subject of the story. And again, so this is one of those things that I feel really bad about. Adam Schefter emailed a story to, and we're getting into the weeds. Let's do Adam Schefter next week.
Yeah, we'll go on. Maybe more information will come out about this situation.
Yeah, we have some
before we go on air next week.
We have power rankings to talk about. We're gonna actually talk, and I'm gonna put it on here. We got a couple of things, but I'm putting Adam Schefter on our list for next week. We'll discuss a little bit more about it, but basically, I'll give you the quick breakdown, and then we'll discuss it a little bit more next week. Adam Schefter reached out to a source for the team, and I forget if it was who it was on the team, and we'll get you the details next week. But he reached out to a source on the team to verify a story before he published it. Jokingly called him Mr. Editor, blah blah blah.
Okay.
Handled it.
More on that next week, and maybe there'll be more stories on. There's obviously still a developing story. Gruden was just the first domino of the fall.
Oh yeah, 100%.
In all this. So let's go over to our power rankings and maybe probably wrap up the show. So Mike, let's just go top 5, top 10, bottom 5, and because I don't think we'll have enough time to maybe look into wide gaps between our two rankings. So Mike, who is your number one team this week?
Hasn't changed. Buffalo Bills. I stand behind it, and the ELO verifies that with me.
All right, I'm sticking with the Arizona Cardinals up there because they're the only undefeated team.
Arizona, I have it
this week. If they lose this week, that could change my opinion.
Arizona, I have it number 2. Rich, who you got at number 2?
This is where I put the Buffalo Bills. They had a great victory over the Chiefs last week.
Okay. I like that pick.
Yeah, they moved up to number 2 for me.
Number 3.
Number 3, Mike.
I have the Los Angeles Rams.
I put the Rams as well. Where'd the ELO go?
The ELO put the Rams at number 4. Oh, you want their 3? Their 3 is that's where they have the Arizona Cardinals. Their number 2 is the Tampa Bay. Now you have to understand this includes last year's rankings. So you have to have some fall off from last year's rankings before you get to this point. That's how it gets to it. Number 4 is where I have I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's where I put the Bucs too.
Number
5, Mike, I went with the Green Bay Packers.
I concur. Number 6, I have the Los Angeles Chargers.
I put the Baltimore Ravens here.
Man, that is we have a bit of a gap there, and I'll tell you where they are in a second. But number 7, who do you got, Rich?
That's where I put the Superchargers.
Okay, I like that. Number 7 for me, Rich. The tides have turned. I have the Dallas Cowboys at number 7. They look like the team to beat, at least in the AFC or NFC East.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not far behind because I put the Cowboys at number 8.
At number 8 is where I have the Baltimore Ravens. That's, again, our biggest gap so far. Number 9, I have the Browns.
That's where I put the Browns, too.
Okay. Number 10, I have the other team from Ohio, Mio Mayo, Cleveland, Ohio. Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals?
The Bengals.
Yeah, this was finding a number 10 team was really hard for me.
I agree. I totally agree.
It was really hard to see where they go.
Yeah.
I didn't know if this was where to put the Chiefs, even though they have a losing record.
Yeah.
Or put somebody else. I gave this one to the Saints.
Okay.
Probably going to change this week.
I don't like I think the Saints win at the beginning of the year is really propping them up quite a bit.
I can agree with that. For me, it just seems like teams like 10 through probably 17 were really hard for me to put in order.
Yeah.
Because they all have similar records. They have some bad losses. They have some good wins.
And there's teams that we expect to be
really
a lot better than they are showing themselves to be.
Yeah.
And let's go through that. Well, let's go all the way to 17. We can do this quick. So at number 11, I got the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's where I put the Chiefs as well.
At number 12, I have the Raiders.
I put the Titans here.
And I will say the Raiders at 12 is with John Gruden. Without John Gruden, they probably drop a little bit. So, yeah.
Okay.
Number 13, who do you have?
This is where I put the Bengals.
Again, I can't argue against that. I cannot argue against that in the same way I don't think you're going to argue too hard when I say that's where I have the New Orleans Saints. I think that win at the beginning of the year props them up. And I still think that's slightly inflated for the New Orleans Saints. I really do think that's inflated for the Saints, but they have to. I have to see proof that they are not that number 13 team.
All right, Mike, who do you got at 14?
14, I have the Tennessee Titans.
That's where I put the Raiders. Their recent losses have kind of drove them down my rankings every week, so that's where I had to put them at 14. Their record, for me, says 14, but if they keep playing like they are, they're going to keep falling. Yeah. Number 15 is where I put the Panthers.
Okay, not bad. I have the Denver Broncos here.
All right.
I have it.
Who you got?
I have at 16 the Panthers. Again, I think the Panthers and the Saints are the exact same team right now. I think they have some wins that I'm a little suspect about. But they're still doing well enough that I need them to prove me wrong first. And I haven't seen that yet.
All right. I put the 49ers at 16, and I put the Broncos at 17.
Okay. I can't argue either of those, and I put the Niners at 17. Our top 17 are identical, Rich. I don't know if you noticed that. Our top 17.
Different teams. Same teams, different places.
Exactly.
Okay, where'd you put the Bears?
The Bears.
Before we get to the bottom 5, where'd you put the Bears?
I put the Bears at 19.
I gave them 18.
Okay. Again, that's one of those. I think I think everybody sees it. The Bears are a much worse team than their record indicates. And I mean, surprisingly, the ELO has them at 15. And the power rankings, the way we mathematically figure things out, that adds in what we would argue the strength of schedule and all that, has them at 14.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
all right, Mike,
Rich.
Let's go to the bottom 5.
Okay.
Who is team number 32?
I mean, is there any question? They're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I agree. 31.
Detroit Lions.
I put the Jets here.
Ooh, okay. I have a hard time arguing against that, other than to go off of your to use your opposite logic against you.
Okay.
A fully defeated team is above a one-win team, and a one-win team that is apparently in your top half.
So the reason that I put the Lions at 30 instead of 31, even though they haven't lost a game, they've lost some tough games to where they've lost on game-winning field goals.
Okay.
Game-winning field goals to the Vikings. Game-winning field goals against the Ravens.
Yep.
They've had some hard losses to where maybe they have 2 wins instead of maybe 2 of those losses are 2 wins because Justin Tucker somehow kicks a 63-yard field goal out of nowhere, and the Vikings kick a game-winning field goal as time's expired.
Yeah,
they've been tough losses. That's why I put them at 30.
My next move is going to be. So you said your 30. My 30 is the Houston Texans.
Okay. I don't have I have the Texans a little higher. We'll get there.
Okay.
Who do you got 29? If you put the Texans at 30.
The Jets, Jets.
Okay. So 29, Mike.
I just did 29.
Oh, I thought you did. Oh, yeah, you did. My 29, I put the New York Football Giants there.
Okay. I have them at 28.
All right. My 28 is the Dolphins.
Okay. And your 27, Rich?
This is where I went with the Texans.
Okay, 27 is where I put the Dolphins. Again, we are very close in this. Obviously, our top halves and our bottom halves match up. We have the same teams in our bottom half. So not surprising that our bottom 5 match up pretty much perfectly. They are the worst teams in baseball or in football. I can agree with your statement on the Lions. It's surprising that they've had some losses that you can't count on a Justin Tucker. I mean, Justin Tucker is the greatest kicker we have in the league right now, but you can't count on him making a 66-yard field goal ever.
It was indoors in Detroit.
You
didn't have to deal with any elements.
You can't count on that. That's the thing. So, either way, anything else before we end the show, Rich?
Well, Mike, why don't you give a quick spoiler alert, because we got to maybe do a quick hit on The Masked Singer.
Spoiler alert. If you don't want to know, hang up the phone, even though you're not on a phone, unless you're listening in a podcast.
Keep
turn
the
it
video
off.
on, but mute us.
You don't want to hear this?
Mute us.
I will. You won't know how to get to the end. So, Masked Singer coming now. Okay.
All right. So, it was, man,
Cupcake.
I don't remember who it was off the top of it. The Cupcake, yeah, the Cupcake.
Cupcake. And it was
it the right person to go home that
week? Danielle thought she didn't do as good of a job as she had done. I thought the banana split was going to go home.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought the banana split did really well. I'm liking what the banana split does. I keep waiting for.
I'm annoyed right now.
To chime in and sing. The microphone's there that week. I was expecting him to start singing.
I think they're going to pull out the banana in a couple of weeks, and he's going to he's going to tear the house down. But, I don't know. Love the show, though. What did you think of the centipede?
Yeah. It was an interesting costume. I thought he did pretty well for his number.
Yeah.
He deserved another week.
Yep.
But, I definitely thought the Cupcake was the weakest performer of the night. I know that
really?
On the show they say, who was your favorite performance of the night?
Yeah.
And it's not ranking, and it's not asking you, who do you think deserves to go home based on their performance tonight or during the course of the entire show? I thought the Cupcake was the right one to go.
I think I thought that the banana split deserved to go. I do think if the Cupcake would have had the other Cupcake, if it would have been both Pointer Sisters, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah,
it's a completely different game. Completely different game.
They could have had a different song selections, and they have 2 people performing.
And it would have been one of the. But I think if it would have been the 2 of them, I think that would have sealed the deal. I think somebody would have guessed them. I think somebody would. I'm still waiting for somebody to use that buzzer thing.
They're not even highlighting it on the show of, does anybody want to use the buzzer? Keep in mind, we have this buzzer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm surprised. When I read that they were going to add that feature to the show, I'm surprised they're not highlighting it more.
I actually expected...
Or that nobody is stopping the performance, like timeout, I know who this is, and wants to go over and press the buzzer.
I expected that this week, actually. When Robin asked about what's your distinguishing feature, and
the dimples.
Yeah,
the dimples.
I
know exactly who this
I know
is.
exactly who. I'm doing it. I thought he was going to go over, smack that button, and
he did.
He didn't. So
they're not even bringing up the button. They've highlighted it 1 week.
Yeah.
And it's like.
I think it's a great addition.
Good of an idea.
Yeah. I think it's an awesome addition. I'm excited for it, but we'll see. Okay.
Maybe it'll be a bigger portion as the show goes on, but that's our show this week, Mike. Any comment shout-outs?
No comment shout-outs. Once again, congratulations, Jonathan and Jenna, on your new babies, 2 baby girls. They look great. They look precious. Hopefully everything's going well. I'm going to see if I can get an update today from them, but you guys don't need to hear that. And then, Austin and Mel, can't wait to celebrate with you on Monday. You guys know why. Rich, do you have anything else before you give us that last thing we got to do?
No, I do not, except other than the general end-of-show reminders. If you're watching us here on Facebook Live and you want to take us with you and listen to us at your convenience, feel free to look us up wherever you find your podcasts, wherever you find all your popular podcast sites. We're on there, where you can find us by searching for Balls and Sticks. You'll see Mike and I in tuxedos looking like we're swinging baseball bats as the show photo.
Yep.
And if you're listening to us out in podcast land and you want to see what we look like, you can find us on YouTube, and also if you or on Facebook Live. And also, if you're ever listening to us on Facebook Live, feel free to put a comment in there.
Yeah.
If it is safe for audio, if we deem it safe for sharing,
if it's not going to get John Gruden fired, we'll read it on air. And Rich, what's it time to do?
We'll read it on air. It's time to roll the outro.
Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa, this is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich.